evening. Welcome to a brand new episode of No Planet B. It was in the recent news that 4 lakh people, 1,089 villages, and 26 districts of Assam were severely affected by floods, landslides, and heavy rains. My prayer to the people of Assam. Flood has become the most common disaster in India. Yet, how prepared are we? More importantly, how prepared are our local bodies to manage floods? Joining us live today is Nidha CP. After graduating from NIT Calicut, she went ahead to pursue masters at IIT Bombay. She is currently working with the district Nirmiti Kendra at Wayanad. She was a researcher at the Canalpy project, which revolves around flood mitigation of Alappuzha district in Kerala. Let's invite Nidha to our live session today.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, Nidha, I gave a little prelude about the Canalpy project. I was going through the website and the tagline is quite interesting. It says, Tod Odeyalla, which translates as canals are not drains.
Yeah.
My first question to you, Nidha, is when it comes to mitigating flood at a local body level, you had worked closely with the Kuttanad region of Alappuzha. So how is the risk assessment done, the flood risk assessment done, and how do you plan for such disasters?
Okay. So thank you for introducing me and thank you for having me. So the work I did in Alappuzha in Kuttanad region was majorly on how to, make a framework for assessing risk rather than assessing the risk and, giving out temporary solutions. We were trying to figure out how we can, design a framework to assess the risk. So why we came to that that level of thinking was that in our country disaster management approaches was like top down approaches. We have NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, then you will get some frameworks from there to state disaster management authority, then to district level DDMA. But at the panchayat level or the local self government level we didn't have much much of the frameworks or what to do, considering that India is such a vast country and the geography is different, the climate, the people, everything is different. Considering that having a single framework does not make sense. And but however, in Kerala, we have KILA, that is Kerala Institute of Local Authorities, and we have KSTMA, Kerala State Disaster Management Authority. So they both came together and they started using, they started devising a framework for, panchayat level or local self-government level frameworks. So that was a great initiative, that was like a going for a bottoms-up approach. But still, when we, the framework was done for like one panchayat and, they were giving out these framework to other panchayats to make them their own. But even then, it was lacking that micro details. So throughout our work, I did my work with a very wonderful organization called Canalpy, like you mentioned. And Canalpy majorly worked in, mostly works in Alappuzha itself. So we came together and we selected this village called Kainagari in Kuttanad region, which gets affected in floods like in a very bad way. They have very frequent floods. We had our 2018-2019 floods, but they have floods like, annually. They have it like very frequently. And the geography of Kainagari is in such a way that it's like a, a collection of small islands. So basically, if you are familiar with the Alappuzha region or Kuttanad region, these islands are called polders. So you'll have agriculture in the middle, and you have raised bunds all around it, and the water is surrounding it. So when the floods happens, it's either because of excessive runoff, which may or may not be due to high rainfall, or maybe the water rises up and then heavy siltation happens and water rises up and the water gets in. And in the worst case scenario, these bunds, which protects these polders, breaks and the water goes in. So in some of the polders, it's very frequent. The bund breaks, they fix it, but again it breaks. So a lot of people have moved away from this place, and they are really tired of this the whole floods, and they know floods happen, and then but they are in such a situation that they can't move away also. So in Kainagiri, we were trying to understand how this place is, what is the context of this place. So the framework we decide so that we can do risk assessment in any places is that uh, there should be some kind of local discussions happening. You have to initiate a discussion, like people should say that we should come together, all that. So in our scenario, Canalpy conducted something called a winter school. They partnered up with Kusat College of Engineering in Kuttanad itself, and a lot of engineering students came up together, and there were lectures given by our professors from IIT Bombay, and all about floods, and all about climate change mitigation, all that. And among them, we wanted to make form a local team, like a local transdisciplinary team. They will be more interested in, they are from Alapi itself, so they would want to see that change, and they were like working to save their land. So we kind of selected 10 volunteers from them, and then we gave them training on how to what is risk, what is the concept of risk, and how each component forms a part of risk, and how we can do surveys, and how we can map each variable, all that. And after that, we did a small kind of study in this region. We went for walks, we went to talk to people, and we understood the basic context of the region. And then we approached the LSG, the local self government, and we are like, we wanted to do the study, and we are doing this. And they were very happy because even they wanted to do something about it. And we started conducting focus group discussions. We had farmers formed a like a larger part of the population, and we had focus group discussion with farmers and all, and we understood what is happening, how flood affects them, and in all way, in biophysical manner, in social manner, and all that. And then we devised a survey to understand what are the factors that affect them most, all that. And even after that, after making a survey, we again went back to the panchayat council, and had a discussion with them, to make sure that what we are saying is, or what we are trying to do is making sense. And after that, we conducted these FGDs, and and then we came up with solutions, as in, but that is like for Kainagiri, that is for that particular village. It's a context based. So that was the work we kind of did in Kainagiri. And
Sorry to break you in. So, what are the parameters that are considered during such?
so in case of risk, we did a lot of studies, and a lot of research, and we had certain components to risk. So one was hazard. Hazard means the factors that are contributing to the floods. So that comes as the topography of the region, maximum flood level that has happened, how many floods have happened in a year, all that. Then the next component was exposure, how you are exposed to it. So we looked at the different, what are the population existing there, the what is the building density there, all that, so this area, and we kind of overlay it. And then comes vulnerability. And when we talk about vulnerability, you have physical vulnerability, you have social vulnerabilities. So in physical vulnerabilities, you look at how your water sources were affected, how your waste management was affected, how your house was affected, all that. when it comes to social, you look into, how their education was affected, how the gender is affected, how different age people is affected, how different class of people is affected, how different caste of people is affected. We have to look into all that. And usually when you assess risk, you only do these three. But when you assess, but we also, in certain literature, we saw that coping capacity also forms a part of it. Whether you can come out of it or not is something. So we looked at how much they are aware of it. Like, do you know why flood is happening? All that, and what the panchayat have done so far, to do to cope with this. So these were the certain
I'm just
factors.
curious, how was sorry again. So I'm just curious, how was the response of the when you conducted the workshop? How was the response of the local people to know about climate
Uh,
change?
the thing is, they know it because they are experiencing it. So us going and conducting classes again, we were not conducting classes, we were mostly talking to them. But then some of them were like very angry, like these kind of surveys happen all the time. So they were kind of, they are the ones who is experiencing it. It's kind of sad.
Sadly,
So
they mostly farmers, fishermen, they become the first-hand victims to
yeah, and
such
who
disaster.
people who have that financial ability, they kind of leave the place and they go. We, but still, tourism is happening in one way. We can see so many houseboats going, and there is oil spill coming from the houseboats. People are throwing bottles, and in the same water, these people are washing clothes, drinking, like washing utensils. Everything is happening. So life goes on, I guess.
And then, do you come up with certain guidelines, mitigation measures that the local panchayat can take up regarding this matter? Is
Yeah,
that
we after conducting these surveys, no, we kind of formulate these analysis. We have this quantitative analysis of, like I told you about how the category itself is like a collection of islands and polders. So we assessed which polder is more vulnerable in case of drinking water, in case of that. So the panchayat itself can look into, okay, this polder has this particular issue. So that's how we gave all this, like the number of houses that were affected, number of water sources affected, all that. So
often
that
there's a lack of these numbers, right? I think there was a slight network glitch.
yeah
So there's often a lack of these numbers. We don't get in hold of such numbers mostly. So it's difficult
the
work
thing
to
is,
quantify such things.
yeah, it is difficult to quantify, and it won't be the same situation years after. And
True.
something interesting we thought about is, like, when you talk about a region, like if you have like 10 houses, and how they are vulnerable to floods is in each 10, like in every 10 houses is different. All 10 of them are different. And if you take one house, how an older person is affected is very different from how a very healthy person is affected. It's like you really can't quantify all this, but at the same time you'll have to address it. So, and make sure that it's all included in it. So
At least the recent IPCC report talks about how psychological impacts also happen due to
yeah,
climate
that
change.
too.
So
Mm.
it's a huge point.
Yeah, a
I'm
lot
just
of
most of
students.
our viewers will also. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, that's it. Even a lot of students, they lose their school days, and some students even get it lose their chance to go to schools itself, like because schools will be in water. So uh, that gets them affected. Yeah, you were asking.
Most of our viewers would be curious to know regarding some flood mitigation measures when it comes to building level. So, is there any case studies or some interesting strategies that you have found during your research there, or maybe outside it as well? Some flood resilient building or the way that architecture somehow adapted to the situation. Could you give us some examples?
So it's like how some people say about sustainable buildings. The most sustainable building is the one you does not build. You do not build. So
Mm.
the best thing you can do is do not construct on a floodplain. But then again, we cannot say that, and our situation changes, and maybe we will have to construct on floodplain. So the things people have adapted over time. So what I saw in Kainagiri is that people who had better financial conditions, they started building on concrete pillars, like at least 1 floor high, and they use the floor part, the ground floor part,
Ground
for
floor.
storing wood, store wood and all that, and they'll have their house on top. So a lot of house on that. But people who do not have such financial advantage, they will build on this industrial work kind of pillars, and they will have V boats and lighter
Hmm.
materials to construct. So even if it goes away in flood, it's not that much loss as it they
Yeah.
lose a properly built
You
house.
can probably build
And
it back again.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's the main thing you can do for flood is elevate your flood line. You check the how much flood has risen over the years. They it's mostly 100 years, they say, 100-year baseline period, and then
Yeah.
you
Just build above
construct
the
a
HFL.
just build
Yeah.
above it. I mean, it's not that complicated, but it's expensive, and that's the best thing we can do. But again, yeah, that's a most I have seen in Kainagiri region itself. And sometimes if your region is not that high, they just rise the foundation. So sometimes the foundation will be
Hmm.
like 1.2 meters high, and all, like compared to our 45 centimeter, 60 centimeter. So that's mostly happening, and there are materials for flood resilient materials that's coming. But again, quite.
That was quite
So
a chat. And let me tell you, I enjoyed this session a lot. And to our viewers, Nidha and I go a long way back. We are friends and batchmates from NIT Calicut. So this episode is extra special to me, Nidha. And I hope to see you in person soon. It's been a very long time.
yeah, it's been very long time. Yeah.
Very long time. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Nidha, for saying yes to my session. Thank you for
Thank you
enlightening
for
our
having
viewers
me.
regarding flood management. So,
Okay.
thank you so much. And to our viewers, stay tuned for more episodes under No Planet B. Thank you, Nidha.
Thank you, Shruti.
Bye.
Bye.